Hey guys, this is Tatiana and AlteRock, and we are here with Mikko Von Hertzen of Hertzen Brothers. Yay!
Hi there, yeah, Turku. Woohoo!
Woo! It's a beautiful day, and we're here before the show. It's been a few months since the release of your new album. How was the reception?
Oh my God, the reception has been I would say even more better than we thought, because this release we released ourselves, so we didn't have a big record company to release it, but somehow it found its way to all these different magazines around the world, and people have been speaking very highly of the album, which is of course really nice. And we spent a lot of time making the album, so it feels great to have that feedback. Of course, if there's some people who don't like it, they usually don't speak out. But what we've heard about it is that people really found it very interesting, and somehow it resonates with today's world.
I heard it took a while yet to listen and get into it for many people, because it was so different from usual you.
Yeah, there was a German editor of a big rock magazine that said that when he first heard it, he was a little disappointed, but then he heard it the second time and he was like, there's something there. And by the sixth time he listened to it, he said that this is the album of the year. So it's kind of funny how because it is quite new, and there are maybe the elements that we are emphasizing are maybe less rock and more just big proggy stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, I do feel a huge difference between the previous albums and this one. Some are more on the, let's call it, in-your-face aggressive side, and this one is more calm and just sort of, I don't know, how do you say, melancholic or something in a way. It's sort of calm and just looking inside, maybe. Yeah.
We had this idea of taking a little break from that kind of really forward-pushing rock energy with loud riffs and stuff. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to, after we spent 6 months writing these songs, and then when we found out what kind of music we have been individually making, we kind of felt okay, now actually we have all these really good songs, and if we put them together, it's going to be very fresh for ourselves. And also there's an element in this band that has always been there, but it hasn't really been in the forefront, so maybe just it was kind of a choice that we also took. Okay, let's steer away a little bit from that energy, and I don't know, it just feels in today's world it felt that kind of everybody's all the time shouting, and everybody's just so loud and aggressive, and polar opposites, taking sides and polar opposites everywhere. We wanted to be there, just this kind of calming element, okay guys, calm down. So what are we dealing with here now? And that was the approach this time. So yeah. Did anything surprise you in certain songs that you expected to be maybe didn't find the right I don't know, didn't get as welcome, but others which you were I think this song will not get noticed, actually did get? Well, I think it's a little bit early to say. I mean, obviously, All of a Sudden You're Gone, which was the first song, is getting and got a lot of attention because it was the first song that we released in 4 years, and Kia made a really beautiful music video for it, so it got a lot of feedback. But then there are a lot of songs there in the album that people are slowly finding and sending us messages that, oh my God, that song. And it's a very epic, more than 70 minutes of music. So sometimes people, in today's world, it just seems that people listen to the first 3 or 4 or 5 songs, and then they have to do something else. Yeah. So that the rest of the songs are kind of left undealt with.
And that's why yesterday I decided to listen to the second half of the album.
Okay, yeah. But that happens. Even I'm the same, when I listen to somebody, one of my friends comes out with a new album, I'm going to listen to it. Yeah. And then by the 5th song, I find myself dealing with stuff,
but because you have to have your full attention the next time on
Exactly. And especially in our case, when we have 10-minute songs, it's a lot, it's a lot to demand people to sit down and listen. But it's art, and then it'll be there for the rest of our lives. It's out there, and it's always the more and the longer we have done this, you kind of learn to appreciate just the fact that you're putting something out there. At some point, somebody might find that song particularly resonating in their life situation or whatever, and then that song 5 years later, 10 years later from its release might be just the thing that people need, you know? So you never know.
The song that surprised me a lot was Elbowed, because it's with a lot of instruments and wind instruments and even violin, right? There was a piano, and I thought, you know what? It's not typical of you, but at the same time, I want to hear more of it. Would you like to continue using more like wind instruments in the future?
I mean, this was it's one of my songs, and it was very much of a trial, because that riff could be played with like loud guitars, and it could be like just a headbanger thing. But when I was kind of like producing that song, you know, together with our mixing guy, so it was just like we wanted to try something different, and to have the riff there, and to have it like strong, to have it strong, but to use different instrumentation there. And thus we asked, you know, with the the horns and everything, and then I used this kind of like really weird kind of like Indian like small ukulele type thing, and we cranked that up quite a bit. So it's a very small instrument that makes a lot of sound. So you know, it sounds really full and great, but there's no electrical instruments there. It's just like, you know, like you said, you know, they're like
more of an orchestra feeling.
Yeah, more of an orchestra feeling. And
you should definitely get on with it. I like that a lot.
I mean, at some point, you know, we haven't played that song live yet, but at some point, if we're making some kind of, I would think that we are going to do something with an orchestra at some point. So then it would be nice to have something also saved for that there would be like a big orchestra.
Hertzen Brothers and Orchestra Sisters.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
You also have a song titled Anil. Do I pronounce it correctly? Yeah.
Anil.
Is it because of Sanskrit, which means wind?
Yeah.
And what kind of background story is it based on? If you know.
Anil is actually Kia just passed us. It's actually a song written by. It's a song written by Kia, and then the lyric we were doing together. Kia had this idea of it dealing with like you know, a child who's been bullied in school and escapes somewhere to dream about maybe having another place somewhere where
I felt
he
it's
could,
so personal, it's so deep with lyrics and everything.
Then we made this, you know, took the hot air balloons there that are kind of like, you know, their meaning is that, you know, when you watch them, you always kind of go like, oh, I wish I was there, right? You know, I always, when I feel something like that, when I see something like that, exactly. And when you see something like that, you go like, oh my God, that would be so nice, and it would take me somewhere like a dreamland kind of thing, and away from this existence now. And yeah, we used that, and then it's a beautiful song that Kia wrote, and then I think that we captured, and Anil came from Sanskrit, and it means, it's a boy's name, and this boy who is there like in the who is kind of telling his stories, his name is Anil, which means the wind, and that's why he goes and thinks that the wind will take him somewhere.
And this album is very experimental, and now that you've experimented and you have had such a good response, right, and everything sort of, you know, people got the message, let's say, more or less what you intended it to be. Do you think you'll continue in the similar direction, musical direction, I mean?
Well, it could be, but at the same time we feel that the band is kind of like ambitious in that way, that we always want to also try different things. So there might be a moment where we feel like, oh, let's go back to doing some rockier stuff. Or you never know with us, you know, it's just like, it's that particular mood of that time. And for example, in this time, you know, because of the pandemic, suddenly we were facing very different things and emotions than before. And then those emotions and that global situation somehow like seeped into the music, also lyric-wise.
Whatever felt right at the moment,
Yeah, exactly. So you never know how it's gonna be, you know. But because of the good response, we don't feel obliged to do anymore, like to follow that kind of classic rock Von Hertzen Brothers trait.
No more boundaries.
Yeah, we can basically, I mean, we always felt like we can do anything we want. But the reality is that, oh my God, we have an audience there, so maybe we should cater something to that. But I don't think we need to. We have a long career, and I think the best bands ever are the ones who are just like, in that moment, they just make decisions. I like that. I do this, you know, and it doesn't take anything away from the previous work, you know what I mean? It just like keeps it fresh for themselves. And then the audience will follow or not. They might find new audience, you know. You never know, but it's the secret to a long career, to be able to kind of like be very honest to yourself and okay, this doesn't feel anymore like something I want to do.
Yeah.
Let's do something else. And that's kind of like very courageous, but somehow I feel like as an artist it will pay off if you continue doing that.
Of course, you'll be true to yourself in a way, not like feeling that this is what I'm told to do and
Yeah.
when am I gonna make something of my own, you're feeling
Yeah.
like this now, I guess.
And to be honest, like I'm a very different person from when I was 25. People change. I get older. I get like different things interest me, and that
course.
kind of like, I think the saddest stories of like musicians who have like 45, 50-year long careers is that they live in the past.
Yeah.
They try to do again what made them famous in the first place.
Yeah.
And that's somehow like when you see that you go like, oh, come on, why don't you try? Some very talented people do that. They choose to do that because that kind of like it's safer. It's safer for them to kind of redo what they were famous for, kind of.
Yeah.
So I think that we don't, because we never got that big. We are not huge, so we don't have that pressure. We can quite
At least
freely,
not as much.
yeah, we can quite freely explore and just be true to ourselves. And I think that we are very free from that in a way. We have people who really understand what we're doing and they are open to different eras and different trials that we make. But then there's bound to be like somebody who's always coming to say that, oh, this is not as good as Let Thy Will Be Done, back in the day. Yeah, where is Kiss the Wish? And, well, you guys are okay, but when you came out with Let Thy Will Be Done, that was a cool thing. And then you just go like, yeah, we did that. It's part of us, but it's not like
Doesn't have to define us like till the end of our life.
If you continue repeating that, you're not gonna feel that as an artist you are evolving, And maybe it's a blessing in disguise that we never became an arena-size artist, because that might have affected us in a way that, kind of like restricting our artistic freedom somehow. Yeah.
Recently, you've had Robert Engstrand, joining you on keyboards. How did you guys meet? And have you been friends all your life, or?
We've known him. He has lived in Finland for quite many years now, and then Bobby was free to come and like try out, after Juha left the band, and then we were just like, he's a very, very talented guy, and he sings like Juha didn't want to sing backgrounds, and suddenly we had 4 singers, so we could really like rearrange we have a lot of harmonies in our music. So Bobby and Sami, who have been now in the band for like 4 or 5 years or something, they're really like gel well with our band, and the musicianship is just outrageously good, so there's never has been a point where he goes like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't, this is too hard or too difficult. It's always like, oh, no problem.
And what was it like to play your first shows after this pandemic period, after the low key? Like, do you remember your very first show?
Yeah, we had like, it was a very tough thing because we played in 2019 in Holland our last show, and then 2 years later, I think it was pretty much exactly 1 year ago today. Actually, today, 1 year ago.
Hey.
And my cat had died 2 days before.
Oh no.
So I was shattered. I was really sad, and it was very hard for me to go on stage and be there, like everybody watching, and I was just like trying to cover my face, and my hair was like this all the time because I was just crying, and it was just like it was too hard. The cat was everything to me, so it was a very sad thing. But we survived. So
yeah, must have felt. I remember we were going to come in March to your first show, but then it was cancelled, right? And then it was like, I was already mentally there at the show, but whatever, at least things are happening now, and that's awesome. And you mentioned in one of the newsletters that it has never been harder, like scheduling shows this year after COVID. Why is that?
Well, the thing is like, first of all, the 2 things is like, many of the clubs have been booked, and then try to plan like 6 months in advance things, or usually you need to plan like a tour 6 months in advance at least, and then like you get like Omicron comes, and you have like, it's been so difficult to
be on
to
the
do
edge,
this.
sort of.
You're kind of like all the time on the edge. Like anybody can get sick anytime, and it's so uncertain. And at the same time, there's also been like cases where, for example, the festivals. They're just like putting up a festival, and they already know that most probably we'll cancel the festival. And then they just put out some names and see if the tickets start selling. And if they don't, after a week they go like, oh, the festival is cancelled. The band has to, of course, mark their calendars that I'm playing this festival, like 6 months in advance or 9 months in advance. And then the festival goes like, we are not doing this. And then the band goes like, we don't have a gig that weekend. We were supposed to play here, and now we need to reschedule, and then you can't anymore because
then
everything is booked.
You try to do pop-up kind of stuff, and it doesn't work.
Exactly. And then it's just like, in our case, for example, we just like, well, we've been lucky in a way that most of the shows that were scheduled, we've been able to do, but there was a lot of like postponing as well.
The section that I want to do now is called Tricky Questions, and this is something that I prepare for every artist to kind of, make him struggle a bit and think philosophically if needed. What's the first concert you saw as a child, and do you think that your first experience influences your future?
It was John Mayer's Bruise Breakers in Tavastia. I was maybe 7 years old, and my dad took me and my brother Kia, and it was there was an age limit of 18. So I remember people being drunk, and I remember a blues band. Kia was maybe 11, I was 9. But Tavastia Club, which is our home venue still, so that was the first one that I really remember, because I was like a small child, and all these guys are very drunk, and there's loud stuff going on.
Awesome. Okay, you do remember it so vividly.
John Mayer,
Do you think it anyhow influenced like what you want to do and that you want to be on stage yourself?
Yeah, and not only that, but I think it was the tour of 1984 with AC/DC for Those About to Rock tour, where they had the cannons, for those about to rock, fire.
We salute.
I was there as a child, 12 years old. I was like, this is the shit. This is what I want to do. This is so cool. Like a child,
Course,
And then that whole gig started with Hell's Bells. The bell is coming from the roof and do.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was like goosebumpy thing. And then there was a lot of like, we went to see in Helsinki in Kulttuuritalo. Many gigs that Johnny Winter, he's a guitar player from the US, and so many things like that kind of like sealed the deal for me.
Which song describes you and your personality best, but is not written by you? For example, you're just thinking, it's like they've written this song about me. That so reflects my vision.
I'm trying to think something by Queen, but I'm not sure if I find something there. Well, I consider myself as a brother to everybody. That's my kind of view of being, So if I say Dire Straits, Brothers in Arms, that could be close, because it's like, I feel that we are here together, and what's the point of fighting, really? So, yeah.
If you had to listen to one album for the rest of your life, which would that be?
Wow. Wow. I don't know. I mean, I think it has changed a little bit during the years, but I would maybe go to something that I really listened a lot when I was a kid, because those are the kind of like the albums that they kind of really sealed like my view on music. So I would go to the Beatles, maybe Abbey Road, because Abbey Road has so much musicianship there, and it's like, I don't know, it's just such a great album, Sgt. Pepper's, maybe one of those, like even Night at the Opera, some really like monumental epic.
I think you still want to listen to something that is so deep in you since God knows when.
But I couldn't imagine like being in a world. I think Abbey Road, because something in the way she moved, that song, I cannot live without that song.
If you could get an answer to one question about your future, what would you ask?
When can I die already? Isn't it enough?
Actually, everybody mentions like, but I don't want to know when I die, like, or how I die.
No, but my question is that can't I just like already like be
I know.
be
You're answering in a different way.
deported into some other plane of existence?
Oh, wow.
I'm sick of this body.
Are you?
I am.
Okay. Then the next question is sort of related to that. You like to talk about the mission as a band, and that if you would like to be remembered, you would want to be remembered as a band with different, sides to it, like as a versatile band and so on. If there was an epitaph not to you but to Von Hertzen Brothers as a band, what would be written on its tombstone?
They should have played arenas. Because that's every single person that gets
Seriously?
into the band. I was like, you guys should be huge.
Yeah?
You guys should play in the arenas. I've heard that millions of
Okay.
times. So I think it should stay there. Like, these guys should have played arenas.
They played well, but they should have played the.
No, I don't know. There was a very beautiful one of our fans had like this kind of like, pick that you play the guitar with, but they made it from like metal.
Mm-hmm.
And it had a very profound few words in it. I'm trying to remember what they were. It was something like when words are silent, music speaks.
So beautiful.
Something like that,
wow.
because I feel that words only get the very surface of things, but music, it's somehow so like, sound waves and everything. It's energy. So maybe that is something along those lines could be written.
Yeah, language that everybody understands and relates to in a way.
Yeah.
You have the chance to go back in time to one of your past days. Which day would you choose and why?
One of my past days.
Yeah. Some moment you'd like to relive.
Oh, like when I was the happiest.
Mm.
Oh, that's a tough one. Well, I've had these experiences of like kind of spiritual experiences that are like, you feel the oneness with everything and everyone. And maybe one of those instances where was maybe 15 years ago in India when I was just sitting in a temple and suddenly, I was just watching. There was some stuff going on and I was just watching and I just suddenly felt like somehow my ego was not there and I felt very connected with everything and everyone. And it was just like, there's nothing except this beautiful energy that kind of like penetrates everything, in a way that you can't verbalize it. It's just, and I was in bliss and I started crying and it was very beautiful. So maybe something like that, because that's something that I aim for in life. I'm not very keen on being Mikko Von Hertzen, No, but it's like, whenever I have a chance, I try not to be, I try to be something beyond that, because these things perish, it's just like we are here momentarily and we are gone, and to feel that connection with, with the creation is, once you have had the taste of it, it's not like, there's nothing compared, because your happiness is not like depending on anything. It just is. So something like that maybe, and maybe to one of those situations where I felt that.
And the last tricky question will be, when was the last time you felt on top of the world?
Well, that is a feeling of ego, to feel like, I'm great.
Well, come on.
No, on top of the
At times
world.
you have to feel that.
Yeah. I mean, usually, you're either alone or you're like surrounded by the people you love and they love you, and you experience something fun together, like really fun. And then I have a lot of experiences like that when I'm like alone on the rooftop on my terrace in India, watching the sunset, top of the world, literally meaning I'm very high up there and watching everything down there. I'm just like, this is cool. But I don't know. Also, there was a very funny moment. I was in LA just a while ago, and there was one of my friend's family had a dog, and the dog was jumping all over me and licking my face and putting his like tongue in my ear, and that was like, I was really happy in that moment because it was just so funny, you know. So those kind of moments where you kind of like the laughter that comes out of you is really genuine and very like spontaneous. And then you are living in that moment and you're nowhere else except in that moment, because in that moment the happiness is
like you're dissolving in it.
Yeah.
So well, I hope you have the top of the world experience today at the show.
And almost always I'm experiencing that on stage at some point of the gig, that I'm completely losing myself into the music, and that is why we do this, you know. We all have that yearning to be in that. And I think it's a yearning to be like, to get rid of the person for a while and just let the music take over. So it's kind of like one of the driving forces, you know, to be a performing artist, to be able to throw yourself into that.
Absolutely.
So let's try to do that today.
Let's try to do that today. And some other time on top of the world, but in Tallinn, Estonia.
Exactly. It's been too long since we came. Yeah.
But thank you so much for the interview.
Thank you,
See
Tatiana.
you guys. Bye.
AlteRock rules.
Woohoo!